She was mocked for taking a bus to a family wedding until favoritism was exposed, so she landed a CEO deal and silenced them. On a hot summer afternoon, Rebecca Campbell was grading piano assignments in her living room with the windows wide open. The apartment was simple, with a fan providing the only coolness, but it was a sufficient home for her. "Mom, look!" shouted her 10-year-old son, Noah, proudly holding up a volcano model he had made for his school science project. Lava, made from baking soda and vinegar, was overflowing from the small crater. "That's wonderful, Noah." Rebecca smiled, adjusting her glasses on her nose. "Mr. Thomas will be amazed." The phone rang and Rebecca sighed. The caller ID showed Mother. It was their weekly scheduled call. "Hello, Mom," Rebecca said. Her mother, Diane's, voice was filled with excitement. "Uncle Dave's wedding details are finally set. It's next month in Palm Beach, Florida, at a wonderful resort. You and Noah are coming, right?" Rebecca frowned. On a teacher's salary, the cost of a trip to Florida would be a significant expense. "Well, it might be difficult financially. Your father and I will take care of arrangements," Diane said immediately. "The whole family should be there. Amy and Mark are coming, of course, and Bradley too." Rebecca closed her eyes briefly. Every time she heard her sister Amy's name, she felt her stomach turn. "All right, I'll come," she finally answered. Noah would enjoy his uncle's wedding. After hanging up, Rebecca sank into the sofa. Just imagining a reunion with her sister Amy made her feel exhausted. Amy was 2 years older, married to a successful investor named Mark, lived in an upscale neighborhood, and sent her 12-year-old son Bradley to a top private school. Rebecca, on the other hand, had musical talent, but chose education over a career as a pianist and taught music at the local high school. 5 years ago, her divorce from Jason had shaken her world. He had left with another woman, and child support payments were irregular. Since then, Rebecca had worked hard to raise her son. There had always been an atmosphere in the family that Rebecca was inferior. Her parents, Howard and Diane, clearly favored Amy, who had succeeded as a businesswoman since childhood. Amy's athletic achievements and business acumen had been celebrated, while Rebecca's passion for music had been dismissed as an impractical hobby. Standing in the kitchen preparing dinner, Rebecca heard her cell phone ring. This time it was a message from her sister. "I heard from Mom you're coming to the wedding. Bradley is looking forward to playing with your son." Rebecca sighed. Amy's messages always felt condescending. It was obvious that Bradley looked down on Noah rather than playing with him. "Noah, go wash your hands. The pasta is ready," Rebecca called to her son. At the dinner table, Rebecca brought up the wedding. "We're going to Florida for Uncle Dave's wedding." Noah's eyes lit up. "Really? Can we go to the beach?" "Probably," Rebecca smiled. Seeing her son's happy face was her greatest joy. "Will Cousin Bradley be there too?" Noah asked. Rebecca didn't miss the slight drop in his tone. "Yes, with your aunt and uncle." "Bradley always makes fun of me," Noah said quietly. "The last time we met, he told his friends my clothes were cheap." Rebecca's heart ached. "Noah, we don't judge people by things, do we? What matters is what's inside." "I know," Noah said, poking at his pasta with a fork, "but Bradley doesn't." Rebecca took her son's hand. "We'll make this trip a good one, I promise." That night, after putting Noah to bed, Rebecca stepped out onto her small balcony. Looking up at the starry sky, she thought about how life hadn't been easy since becoming a single mother, especially when compared to Amy's luxurious lifestyle. Still, she was happy with her life with her son. Seeing Noah's smile and watching him grow day by day gave her purpose. The Florida trip was approaching. Rebecca took a deep breath and resolved to make the best of her time with family, regardless of how she might be treated, for Noah's sake and for her own. "Rebecca, I've made the travel arrangements." Her mother's voice came over the phone during breakfast. Rebecca took a sip of coffee and closed her eyes, holding the receiver to her ear. "Amy's family is taking a direct flight from New York. I booked business class. The flight is only 3 hours, but Mark said he wanted to travel comfortably." Rebecca nodded while washing dishes. "What about us? For you too?" Diane's voice mixed with hesitation. "I think it would be best if you went by bus." Rebecca's hands stopped. "Bus to Florida, Mom?" That would take 12 hours. Yes, but the fare is less than half of a plane ticket. I know you're struggling financially, so I considered what we could afford. Rebecca leaned on the sink. The thought of taking her son on a 12-hour bus ride made her stomach hurt, but the image of her sister's family flying business class was equally painful. And her mother continued, Amy's family will arrive 3 days before the wedding. They want to enjoy the resort early. You two can arrive the day before, so the bus will get you there in time. Rebecca slowly exhaled. All right, Mom. We'll take the bus. After hanging up, Rebecca entered the living room where Noah was doing his homework. Noah, about the Florida trip, she said, carefully choosing her words. We'll be going by bus. Bus? Noah looked up. But that's really long, isn't it? Yes, it will take about 12 hours. But we can enjoy the scenery, read books together, and play games. Rebecca tried to sound cheerful. How is Cousin Bradley getting there? There was a moment of silence. Bradley's family is flying. Why aren't we flying? Noah's voice contained an innocent question. Rebecca shrugged lightly. Bus trips can be fun too. Think of it as an adventure. Noah thought for a moment, then nodded slightly. The day of departure arrived. Rebecca and Noah headed to the airport early in the morning. The bus terminal was inside the airport, and they were scheduled to meet Amy's family and her parents first in the airport lobby. Amy stood in her latest designer suit alongside Mark. Bradley was absorbed in his new tablet. Howard and Diane were planning to fly to Florida on the same flight as Amy's family. Finally, you're here, Amy said when she saw Rebecca. Our check-in is about to start. Good morning, Rebecca greeted flatly. How have you been? Busy. I closed a big deal on a new company project, Amy boasted proudly. Bradley, say hello to your cousin. Bradley reluctantly looked up and said, hey, before returning his attention to his tablet. Noah replied with a small, hello. What time is your bus? Diane asked. 9 o'clock, Rebecca answered. We have an hour. I see. We need to check in now. Diane turned to Amy. We can relax in the business lounge. Hey, Rebecca, Amy suddenly called. Why are you taking the bus? Planes are faster. Rebecca was at a loss for words. Well, did you think you'd fly business class? Diane interrupted with a laugh. That's not in your budget. Amy looked Rebecca up and down and smirked. The dirty bus suits you better. Rebecca felt her face grow hot. She could feel Noah stiffening beside her. Mom, buses stink, Bradley suddenly said. When we rode one for a school trip, it smelled terrible. At those words, Amy and Mark burst out laughing. Diane also had a small smile. Only Howard seemed a bit uncomfortable. Let's go, Diane said, looking at her watch. Security checks might take time. Before her parents and Amy's family headed to the security gate, Diane turned back to Rebecca. See you in Florida. Take care. Yes, Rebecca answered flatly. Amy waved elegantly. Enjoy your bus trip. Bradley snorted and followed his parents. Rebecca and Noah stood quietly watching until they were out of sight. Mom, Noah said in a small voice. Why does Aunt Amy and Grandma say those things? Rebecca hugged her son's shoulders. Sometimes, even as adults, people behave like children. But we're different. We'll enjoy our journey. Noah nodded. However, a hurt look remained in his eyes. Rebecca and Noah began walking toward the bus terminal. In Rebecca's mind, Amy and Diane's words echoed repeatedly. She was reminded that the family dynamics that had existed for years continued unchanged today. Before boarding the bus, Rebecca looked up at the sky through the airport's large windows. Somewhere up there, a plane carrying Amy's family was probably flying above the clouds in luxurious seats, enjoying special meals. Let's go. Rebecca took Noah's hand and headed for the bus entrance. No one was there to see them off as they boarded the yellow coach bus. The bus began to rumble southward. Rebecca sat by the window, trying to cheer up a dejected Noah. She had just started reading a book aloud when a voice came from the adjacent seat. That's wonderful reading! An elderly gentleman with gray hair, a well-groomed beard, and gentle blue eyes was smiling. I'm Jack Morrison. The man extended his hand. Rebecca Campbell. She returned the handshake. This is my son Noah. As the conversation progressed, they discovered that Jack was also heading to the same resort. When he touched on the topic of music, Rebecca's eyes began to sparkle. "Do you teach music?" "Yes, I'm a music teacher at the local high school." "Wonderful," Jack said with genuine admiration. "I love music too." "Mom is an amazing pianist," Noah suddenly said proudly. "She also directs the school choir." From that question, Rebecca began to talk about her educational philosophy. Jack listened intently as Rebecca passionately discussed her approach that emphasized creativity and self-expression. Several hours passed, and when the bus stopped for a break, the three had a light meal together. Noah had begun to open up to Jack and was enthusiastically talking about his school science project. "So what do you do?" Rebecca asked during the meal. Jack seemed to consider for a moment. "I work in education," he answered succinctly. As the bus started moving again and Noah had fallen asleep, Jack pulled out a business card. Rebecca took it, and her eyes widened. "Chief Executive Officer of Harmony Innovations," she exclaimed in surprise. Harmony Innovations was a major corporation known nationwide for providing music education programs. "We're always looking for innovative educators," Jack said seriously. "Would you tell me more about your ideas during our stay at the resort?" Rebecca felt her cheeks flush with surprise and excitement. "Of course," she replied. "I'd be happy to." On their way to the check-in counter at Sunrise Resort, Rebecca and Noah encountered her parents and Amy's family in the lobby. "So, you finally arrived," Diane said. "How was the bus? You must be tired." "Actually, it was a very good journey," Rebecca answered calmly. "We're staying in a poolside villa," Amy bragged. "Bradley is already enjoying jet skiing." Rebecca and Noah were shown to a small but clean room with an ocean view. That evening, a pre-wedding dinner was held. Rebecca wore a simple black dress, and Noah changed into formal attire. Entering the hotel's banquet hall, Amy's family was already seated at a table. "Oh, isn't that dress the one you wore at last year's Christmas party?" Amy said in a sarcastic tone. Before Rebecca could answer, there was a stir at the entrance to the banquet hall. Jack Morrison had just entered in a sophisticated suit. He was surrounded by several hotel staff and was clearly receiving special treatment. When Jack noticed Rebecca, he smiled and walked toward her table. "Rebecca, Noah," he called in a warm voice. "How are you?" Amy and her parents watched the conversation between the two with surprised expressions. "Is this your family?" Jack turned his gaze to the other members at the table. Rebecca introduced her family, and Jack greeted them politely. "I'm Jack Morrison. I met Rebecca and Noah on the bus." "On the bus?" Amy looked incredulous. "Are you a businessman?" Mark quickly asked. "Yes," Jack answered modestly. "I'm the chief executive officer of a company called Harmony Innovations." The table fell silent at these words. "My goodness." Diane suddenly changed her attitude. "That's impressive. Won't you sit down?" "Thank you," Jack politely declined. "I actually have an appointment with colleagues, but I've arranged to talk business with Rebecca tomorrow." "Business?" Amy's voice was mixed with doubt. "Yes." Jack smiled at Rebecca. "I'm very interested in her approach to music education." After Jack left, the table was enveloped in surprised silence. "You are acquainted with the chief executive officer of Harmony Innovations?" Amy asked with an incredulous look. "We sat next to each other on the bus," Rebecca said lightly. "He's a very kind person." "Why didn't you say anything?" Diane asked in an accusatory tone. Rebecca shrugged. "I didn't think it was important." "Not important?" Amy raised her voice. "He's a top industry figure, and he's going to talk business with you." Amy's voice was mixed with doubt and envy. "He seems interested in my educational approach," Rebecca answered quietly. For the remainder of the dinner, the atmosphere at the table changed dramatically. Amy and Diane suddenly began showing respect to Rebecca and asking about her work. Mark also tried to learn more about Jack. On the way back to the room, Noah said, "Mom, Grandma, and Aunt Amy suddenly became nice, didn't they?" Rebecca smiled sadly. "Yes, but you didn't really change, did you? It's because Jack is famous, right? You're smart. Sometimes people judge only by external things, but what really matters is what's inside." After returning to the room, Rebecca's cell phone rang, displaying a message from Amy. "Let's have breakfast together tomorrow morning. I want to talk about your meeting with Jack." Rebecca sighed. Her sister, who had looked down on her for years, was suddenly trying to become her friend. On the morning of the wedding day, Rebecca woke up early. Last night's message from Amy was on her mind, making her uneasy. She quietly slipped out of bed and stepped onto the balcony. The morning sun was just beginning to illuminate the sea, announcing the start of a new day. A knock sounded from the door. Rebecca checked the clock, 7:30 a.m. She checked that Noah was still sleeping before opening the door. "Good morning, sister," Amy said in a bright voice. She was dressed in perfect makeup and high-end casual wear. "Shall we go to breakfast?" "Just the two of us." Rebecca was a bit confused but nodded. "Wait a moment. I'll leave Noah a note." The two took a seat at the hotel's terrace restaurant. A waiter poured coffee as they took in the magnificent view overlooking the sea. "I was surprised last night," Amy started the conversation, "to find out you know Jack Morrison." "It was a coincidence," Rebecca answered concisely. "But it's a wonderful opportunity," Amy said eagerly, "considering your situation." Rebecca frowned. "My situation?" "Come on, let's be realistic." Amy lowered her voice. "Single mother, low salary. Having connections with someone like Jack would be good for Noah too, wouldn't it?" Rebecca silently drank her coffee. "So, what are you going to talk to him about?" Amy asked. "About my approach to music education," Amy laughed. "Just that? You need to think bigger. Harmony Innovations is a huge corporation. They might give you an opportunity. I just want to share my passion," Rebecca answered quietly. Amy sighed. "You're always like that. Can't you be more ambitious?" She touched Rebecca's hand. "I'll help you. I'll talk to Jack about you too." "That's not necessary," Rebecca said immediately. "It's fine." Amy smiled. "I want to help as your sister." After breakfast, Rebecca returned to her room feeling anxious. From past experience, Amy's help was often for her own benefit. In the room, Noah was awake and eating breakfast. "Are you looking forward to talking with Jack?" Noah asked. "Yes," Rebecca answered. "But I'm a bit nervous." "You'll be fine, Mom," Noah said with confidence. "Jack likes the way you teach music, right?" Rebecca felt warmed by her son's pure trust. The wedding began at noon and was held in a beautiful garden along the beach. Rebecca and Noah sat a little distance away from Amy's family and her parents. The ceremony was moving, and the bride and groom's love seemed to radiate to those around them. While moving to the reception venue, Rebecca spotted Jack. He was wearing a sophisticated suit and talking with some businessmen. As she approached, Jack interrupted his conversation and greeted her with a smile. "Rebecca, you look beautiful today." "Thank you," she smiled back. Jack, this is really—" "Oh, Jack," Amy's voice interrupted. She was approaching with Mark. "So glad to see you again." Jack politely greeted them. "Amy, Mark. Looking forward to your meeting with Rebecca," Amy said in a sweet voice. "I thought I might help you get to know her better." Jack seemed a bit confused. "Yes, of course. It was at 3 p.m., right?" Amy asked. "May I join you briefly?" The whole family is impressed with Rebecca's educational philosophy. Rebecca was speechless with surprise. She couldn't understand why her sister was trying to intrude on her meeting. "Actually," Jack began to say, when the wedding coordinator started directing everyone to the reception hall, "let's talk later," Jack said to Rebecca, and began moving with the other guests. The reception began, and Rebecca took her seat with Noah. Amy and her parents were seated at a different table. During the meal, Rebecca occasionally glanced at Jack. He was enjoying conversation with what looked like important people. By the time dessert was served, Noah had gone to the restroom. When he returned, his expression was clouded. "What's wrong?" Rebecca asked worriedly. Noah looked around anxiously. "Mom, Aunt Amy was saying terrible things to Jack." Rebecca's heart began to race. What was she saying? "Aunt Amy told Jack that you're struggling with money and that you've had problems at work," Noah continued in a small voice. "She said you need an opportunity, but when the uncle asked what about her abilities, Aunt Amy said, 'Well, they're average.'" Rebecca felt her face growing hot. "Where did you hear this?" in the hallway near the restroom. I wasn't seen, but I could hear their voices. Noah's eyes were filling with tears. "Mom, why is Aunt Amy always so mean?" Rebecca squeezed Noah's hand. Though she felt anger at Amy's betrayal, she tried to maintain composure in front of her son. People sometimes have jealousy or insecurities, but it's okay. The truth will eventually come to light. We need to tell Jack the truth, Noah said seriously. Noah? The conversation was interrupted as Jack approached their table. Rebecca? May I speak with you? Rebecca stood up. Of course. Please bring Noah along too. Jack smiled. How about the hotel gardens? We can talk quietly there. The three left the reception hall, feeling the gazes of people. Rebecca didn't miss Amy watching them with a suspicious expression. Sitting on a bench in the garden, Jack said gently, I just spoke with your sister. Rebecca tensed and straightened her back. I see. Yes. Jack frowned slightly. She told me interesting things about you. Noah suddenly interrupted. They're lies, Noah. Rebecca tried to reprimand her son, but Noah wouldn't stop. Everything Aunt Amy said is a lie. Noah looked at Jack with a serious glare. Mom is the best teacher and is respected by her students. She has never caused trouble at school, and she's not looking for a job because of money. Jack looked at Noah with a surprised expression. Noah, that's enough. Rebecca gently gripped her son's shoulder. No. Please continue. Jack said quietly. Noah took a deep breath. Aunt Amy has always looked down on Mom. When we had to take the bus, she said, the dirty bus suits you better. Even Bradley said, buses stink. Noah's voice was trembling. But Mom never talked back. She's always endured it. Jack was silent for a while.
I see,
he finally said.
This explains everything.
Rebecca tried to apologize to Jack, but he raised his hand. No need to apologize. Actually, I felt something was off when listening to your sister. She described you as a completely different person from the one I met on the bus. Amy. Rebecca searched for words. My sister sometimes changes reality to suit herself. I admire your son's courage, Jack smiled. It takes great courage to speak the truth sometimes. Rebecca nodded. Noah is an honest child. Anyway, Jack changed the subject. Let's get back to our original purpose. Rebecca, your approach to music education is truly innovative. After hearing you talk on the bus, I wanted to work with an educator with your perspective. He opened his briefcase and took out some documents. At Harmony Innovations, we're planning to develop a new educational program. I'd like you to participate. Rebecca's eyes widened. Really? Your creative approach and practical experience are exactly what we're looking for, Jack said with a serious expression. We can pay more than double your current salary. We also guarantee creative freedom in program development. Rebecca was speechless. This was an opportunity she had never dreamed of. If you need time to think, I accept, Rebecca answered immediately. Thank you for this opportunity. Wonderful. Jack was delighted. We'll finalize the details next week. He stood up. Now, shall we return to the reception? The cake cutting should be starting. When the three returned to the reception hall, Amy immediately approached. How did it go? She asked in a sweet voice, but her eyes were anxious. Jack smiled calmly. Rebecca is a wonderful educator. I'm impressed by her talent and passion. Amy's expression clouded. I see. But what I told you. I understand your concern, Jack said coolly. However, I'm the type who judges by what I see and hear myself. He turned his gaze to Rebecca. We've finalized a contract between Rebecca and Harmony Innovations. We plan to roll out her music education program nationwide. The color drained from Amy's face. Contract? Yes, Jack continued. Her talent and innovative approach were exactly what we were looking for. Rebecca stood silently, watching Amy's shocked expression. Inwardly, she rejoiced that her sister's scheme had backfired. Well, isn't that great? Amy tried to cover up. Congratulations, Rebecca. I was rooting for you. Rebecca just smiled. Thank you, Amy. Diane and Howard approached. What happened? Diane asked. Jack explained the situation, and her parents showed expressions of surprise and, at least in her father's case, pride. "Rebecca, why didn't you say anything?" Diane asked, looking confused. "I didn't have a chance to," Rebecca answered calmly. Jack looked at his watch. "Excuse me, but I have other appointments. Rebecca, Noah, thank you for a wonderful weekend." He smiled at the two. "I'll contact you next week." After Jack left, a moment of silence fell. Amy was clearly upset, and Mark also looked confused. "Congratulations, Rebecca," Howard said for the first time with genuine warmth. "I always believed in your talent." Noah squeezed his mother's hand and looked up proudly. Rebecca took a deep breath and looked around at her family. "Thank you," she said quietly. For the rest of the day, the family dynamics subtly changed. Amy became more silent, and her parents showed more respect toward Rebecca than before. However, Rebecca knew this wasn't a true change, but merely a reaction to her new success. At the end of the wedding, Rebecca and Noah walked on the beach as the sunset turned the sea red. "You were very brave today, Noah. I just wanted to tell the truth for you," Noah answered, making footprints in the sand. "I'm so happy to have you." Rebecca hugged her son. "Me too," Noah smiled. "Mom, what's going to change now?" Rebecca looked at the sea. "Many things will change, but the most important thing, that we're together, that won't change." The two continued walking quietly along the beach. A sense of a new beginning enveloped them, along with the Florida twilight. 1 year later, Rebecca stood in front of the large window in her spacious living room, gazing at the city view. "Mom, look, I finished it." Rebecca turned at Noah's voice. He was now 11 and had grown a bit taller. He was showing her a music app he had created in his programming course on his tablet. "That's amazing, Noah," Rebecca said, embracing her son's shoulders. "You really have talent." In a year, Rebecca and Noah's lives had changed dramatically. The contract with Harmony Innovations had turned into a major project to roll out her music education program, Creative Harmony, nationwide. The program had been more successful than expected, adopted by hundreds of schools, and Rebecca had become known as an educational innovator. They had moved from their small apartment to a comfortable Manhattan condominium provided by the company. Noah attended an excellent private school, developing his talents in both music and science. "There's an email from Jack," Rebecca said, looking at her smartphone. "He's confirming next week's workshop." Jack had become her good friend and mentor, always supporting her career. Thanks to his advice and guidance, Rebecca had become a respected figure in the field of music education. The phone rang and Rebecca sighed. The screen displayed Mother. "Hello, Mom, Rebecca, how are you?" Diane's voice had become much gentler than before. "I saw your interview article. I'm so proud of you." Rebecca smiled, but there was a hint of irony in her smile. Her parents' attitude had completely changed with her success. Those who once called her passion for music an impractical hobby now claimed they had always believed in her talent. "Thank you, Mom," Rebecca answered calmly. "And about Amy?" Diane's voice lowered a bit. "She's going through a difficult time." Rebecca listened silently. Amy's life had changed significantly over the past year. Her company had suffered major losses due to a real estate market collapse, and she had lost her high position. Furthermore, her relationship with Mark had deteriorated and was on the verge of divorce. "She wants to get in touch with you," Diane continued. "I hope you can reconcile." Rebecca gazed out the window. Amy had contacted her several months ago, too. A sudden friendly message asking for business advice. "Mom, family is important." Rebecca carefully chose her words. "But true family relationships are based on respect and love. For a long time I couldn't feel that." "But you've succeeded now," Diane said, sounding slightly dissatisfied. "Isn't it time to forgive?" "This isn't about success or failure," Rebecca said firmly. "If Amy has truly changed, I'm ready to talk anytime. But for now, I want to keep my distance." After hanging up, Rebecca sat on the sofa and exhaled deeply. "And Amy?" Noah asked. He seemed to have heard his mother's conversation. "Yes," Rebecca smiled. "Grandma wants me to make up with your aunt." "Won't we see Aunt Amy and Grandpa and Grandma anymore?" Rebecca sat next to her son. We might see them someday, but I learned what true family means. It's not just blood ties, but caring for and supporting each other. Like Jack. Yes, Rebecca smiled. And like your classmates' families, and the people on our team. The intercom rang, announcing that the driver had arrived. Let's go. Rebecca stood up. It's almost time for our flight. Rebecca and Noah left the luxury condo and got into the waiting car. They were heading to London for the international expansion of the Creative Harmony program. Arriving at the airport, they could see the same terminal where they had been humiliated a year ago. Rebecca paused slightly, remembering that moment. What's wrong, Mom? Noah asked. Just thinking. Rebecca smiled, about how far we've come. Heading to the check-in counter, an attendant greeted them politely. Miss Campbell and young master business class, right this way, please. Rebecca and Noah were guided to a dedicated lane. Entering the business class lounge, a luxurious space spread out before them. Mom, look! Noah called from beside the window. Outside the airport, a large coach bus, like the one they had once ridden, was parked. Rebecca stood next to her son, looking down at the bus. If we hadn't taken that bus, we would never have met Jack. Sometimes, the slower road has wonderful encounters and discoveries. Noah repeated Rebecca's words. Rebecca hugged her son. That's right. As boarding time approached, they left the lounge. Walking through the airport, Rebecca thought, sometimes life's most difficult paths lead to the most beautiful destinations. She was now in the middle of a journey, sharing her talent and passion with the world, and most importantly, she was making that journey with her beloved son.